Okay, yeah, guys, sorry about that. So, yeah, like I said, this class is good. We're going to focus majorly on the implicit animations in Flutter, and then in part two, we're now going to be focusing on the explicit animations, where we'll be using animation controllers and all of that juice. But for this class, we're just going to be focusing on the built-in animations that we have in Flutter. So let me just know if you can see my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Just react with an emoji when you can see it. Okay, good. So I'm just going to present. So yeah, this class is on introduction to Flutter animations. So the overview of what we're doing today. So animations in mobile app development are crucial for enhancing user experience. They make the interface more engaging and intuitive. And an animation is an abstract class that understands its current value and its state, completed or dismissed. An animation object sequentially generates interpolated numbers between two values over a certain duration. So if you guys have taken a look at some animation codes, you will see that there's like twin animation or something, and then there's like a begin and then there's an end. So the interpolation of numbers between that beginning and the end values is what animation basically is. So like we said, the example here is a twin animation that begins at 0 and ends at 1 within 300 milliseconds. So I'm going to go to the next. Sorry, give me a second, guys. Something is missing here. Okay, yeah. So basically we have two types of animations. Like we have the implicit animations and then we have the explicit animations. So what are implicit animations? Basically, implicit animations, often referred to as implicit or built-in animations, are animations that Flutter handles automatically. Right? So these are animations that are associated with specific widget properties, and Flutter takes care of transitioning these properties smoothly from one state to another. So an example, examples of these are animated container, animated opacity, animated scale, and all of that. So here in this section now, we'll delve into the fascinating world of harnessing Flutter's powerful built-in animation capabilities, and then we'll uncover the diverse array tools of widgets and techniques at your disposal for creating captivating and interactive user experience through fluid motion and transition. So the what's it called that you guys can see at the bottom here are the types of some types of implicit animations that we have. So for example, we have animated scale, animated container, animated switcher, animated size, animated rotation, animated crossfade, animated slide, animated align. So these are just like a few implicit animations that you have. So if you are used to using these animations in Flutter, can you react? Let me see. Let me know the people that will be teaching us today. No worry, don't fear. Imagine, I said we should have somebody left the meeting because you don't want to teach us. Don't be so. If you are using these implicit animations, please react. Maybe with a thumbs up. Yeah, react with a thumbs up, please. If you have been using any of these implicit animations. Okay, good. So it seems we have bosses here that are going to teach us today. Amazing. So before we delve into the practical aspects, I'm just going to go ahead to explain what explicit animations are. So explicit animations, on the other hand, or custom animations, requires developers to manually control and specify animation behavior, right? They offer more control and flexibility compared to implicit animations, right? For implicit animations, that we said, they are built into Flutter, so there's little to the customization that you can do to it. Now in explicit animations, you work with animation controllers explicitly. Animation controllers allow you to define the animation's duration, curve, and control when it starts, stops, or reverses. An example of this is using scale transition widget with an animation controller. So now we're going to move to the next thing. So now this is going to be the last part of our slide, because we are going to be doing more of practical here compared to theory, right? So these are just like 4 of the animation best practices in Flutter. This is not all of them, but these are like the 4 major ones which I take into consideration when I'm working with animations. Firstly, plan your animation. That's like one of the most important things. When you want to do an animation, you have to first sit down, define your animation goals and objective before you start writing code. Don't just see animation and then just start writing code, because the truth is, if you just excuse me, if you just go ahead to start writing code, you would get confused at some point. So you have to properly plan it and then decide on the type of animations you need. When you see an animation, you should know that, okay, will I be using transition, animated transition here, or would I be using scale transition or rotation transition and all of that. And we can actually merge multiple animations together to give us what we want exactly, which is going to be an example of what we'll be doing too today. So yes. And then secondly, always dispose your resources. Very, very important. Ensure that your animation controllers are properly disposed after being used. So basically what this means is that when you are using animation controllers, always call controller.dispose in your dispose method inside your step widget. And also you should use curves. Curves make your animations really smooth. And then applying easing curves to your animations to control acceleration and deceleration makes them feel more natural. And then you can experiment with different curves to find the right one for the animation that you want or that you need. For example, there's an animation that I made recently somewhere. I pasted the what's it called, the code somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it is, but we're going to take a look at it later. So, and then lastly, also always ensure that you test your animations on physical devices. Very, very important, because truth is sometimes iOS gives you one, smooth feeling. Android might give you another feeling and all of that. Just ensure that you test on different devices to ensure that yes, this thing performs exactly what I want it to do. So without further talks, without further ado, we're just going to delve straight into writing codes. But before we go into that, do we have any questions, please? Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, my question is, where do we like? In what place do we use animation? Like, this is the place that is most best for using animation. I want to get like, I want to get like the overall concept.
Okay,
Before
yeah. So
even taking up
there's actually
the how.
no right answer to that, right? Firstly, it depends on how lovable, I'm going to use that word, you want your app to feel, right? I mean, something that me as a user, for example, would love so much is, imagine that I have a balance of 0 now, and then I found my wallet with, let's say, 2,000 naira. I would love to see that my balance would increase from 0 and then count all the way to 2,000. For example, I'm just using that as an example, right? That can be expensive. It would really be smooth, right? It would really be beautiful when you see your balance increase from 0 to 2,000 and then it counts to 2,000, for example. Unlike 0 just changes to 2,000. So firstly, depends on how well you want your users to interact with your app. Funny thing is, animations actually make people stay on the app, either we like it or not. Excuse me. Animations make exactly. Also, if your designer is wicked, exactly like Uzochukwu said, if your designer is wicked, you will definitely do animations too. So firstly, your user experience, number one. Secondly, your how sophisticated you want your app to look like. You don't just want to have a boring app that is just there. I mean, I've had quite a number of people that will tell me, the reason why I'm using this bank app is because they have animations and all of that, which is the truth. So your user experience, most importantly, and how sophisticated you want your app to be like. So instead of having just to maybe show a dialogue, for example, why don't you slide that dialogue from the bottom to the top? Do you understand? So that's just my own answer. There's actually no correct answer to it. So I hope I've been able to answer you. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Do we have any other questions before we move in? Okay, so we're just going to be moving into our code now. So I've actually written quite a number of things here, right? But what I wrote last is that this is what we're going to be building at the end. This looks more like the expansion tile that we have in Flutter. So I'm just going to show to us how we can manipulate some of these widgets to give us exactly what we want, right? So let me just take this off. So firstly, we are going to be looking at let me pick one of them. We are going to be using the twin. Let me see, which one should we use first? Let's check our list. Give me a second. Let's see. Which one should we use? Okay, let's use the animated container first. So I'm just going to take off this code. Sorry, give me a second. I'm going to take off this code, right? Well, in fact, so I'm going to review this. So let me just remove the whole of the code. I'm going to remove the whole of the body, and we have a clean code. And then I'm just going to give a center widget here, and the child will be an animated container, right? Sorry, animated. Oh, let me. Is this font okay, guys? I figured we might be having a bit of issues seeing my code base. Is this okay, or do I need to increase the font size? Please let me know.
Yeah, you need to increase the font size.
Okay.
Sorry,
How
can
about
you
this? Is this okay?
create a demo of this thing?
Is this okay?
Yeah.
We're good now, right?
Yeah. Sorry, can you do a demo of the one on your implicit?
Oh, this one? Yeah, this is what we have here. Can you see that?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be building last, by the way. So that's just like a very basic animation, but it's just manipulating some of these widgets all together to give you exactly what you want. So now we have an animated container here, right? Sorry, that's the work of GitHub Copilot. So, and then when you have an animated container, you have to give it the duration, and then let's say now the essence of having, okay, for example, let's have a container first so that we'll see the difference. Let's say we have a container, right? And then we have the height to be 300, we have the width to be 300 also, then we have a decoration, we have a box decoration, and then we have a color of colors.red, right? And then we have a border radius circular of 20, right? Now let's not assume that we'll have let's have a floating action button here, right? Floating action button, and then the unpressed. We're not gonna say let's just have a boolean variable that says is red, right? Which is true at the beginning because the color is red, right? So we'll now check here that if it's red, we have colors.red, else we have colors.blue. By the way, I'm going to be using the switch expression here, not the ternary operator. If you've been following my series on pattern matching and all of that, you would understand what this is. So now when we have is red, we have colors.red, if not we have colors.blue. So inside our floating action button, right, we'll set state, we'll set is red to be equals to is not red. So let's restart this. So now if we restart, we can see how this is just changing from blue to red, right? Which is not something very smooth. It's just changing. So if we want to add like a little bit of effect to this, let's change this then to an animated container, right? And then we'll give it a duration of let's say a duration of 300 milliseconds, right? And then let's see what happens when we click this. Now can we see the animation that happened, the interpolation between red and blue? Let me increase this to, let me say seconds, let me say 1. Now let's see how it changes from blue to red. That's exactly what animated container does for us. So now it gives some sort of smooth, animated feeling instead of just having that thing that bumps into, the what's it called, the other color. So now let's say height, right? Int height is equal to 300, right? And then let's just pass height here, and then let's say double. Let's give this a double, and then let's say when we tap on that button, we want height to be, let's say if height right is equal to 300, right? Let's say we want to set state height equal to 100, else we will now set height to 300, right? Now let's save this. Let's restart because we declared it outside of our build method. Now when we do this, can you guys see how it's interpolated between those two values? That's just basically what an implicit animation can actually do for us in Flutter. So now let's now move on to another one. Do we have any questions before we move on to the next animated to the next implicit animation, guys, so that I'm sure that everybody understands what we're doing? Do you have any questions? Any questions?
Sorry, can you explain? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Can you just throw more light on that switch expression?
Can I what? I didn't get you.
Can you throw more light?
Sorry, can anybody hear him? Is it my network?
No, you say you throw more light.
Okay, can I throw more light? Okay, so what would you like me to throw more light on?
On switch expression.
Oh, okay, on switch
I think
expressions.
this is
So
network.
if you would like to understand what switch expressions are, just go to youtube.com, right? Then search for Flutter benders, right? You see our videos here, so you can just go through the channel. You see the videos that we have on switch expressions, pattern matching, and all of that. So everything is here. We are not just going to be going into that because we have the explanation. So you can just come here and by the way, when this class is done, the recording of this class will also be uploaded to this YouTube channel. So you guys can come back here to take a look at it should in case you need something from there. So yes, let us move on. So that is animated container. So let's pick let's say animated align. Beautiful animated align. I love this one so much because I was able to like do a little bit of manipulation around this. So let's just take this off, and now let's say body will have a GitHub Copilot. We have an animated align widget, right? I have an animated align example somewhere down there, but I'm not going to be using that because of the case of this. So we have const duration, right? Sorry, give me a second. Duration. We have milliseconds. Okay, let's say seconds. Sorry, let's give it just 1 second, and then we are going to create a method here, right? That's going to get us a random alignment, right? Because we don't want to just have, okay, for example, let me say, okay, let's have a child here, right? To be a container, right? Then with a height of 300, with a width of 300, and then with, let's say, colors.red, for example, and then we're going to make this alignment dot top center, for example. So now, or let's make this alignment dot center. So now we have this as alignment dot center. If I change this to alignment dot bottom center, let's see how it animates to that position. Can you guys see it now? Compared to actually having a normal align widget. For example, let me change this to align so that you guys will see the difference. And then let's see. So I'm going to change this to top center. And then can you guys see how we just jumped, let's say bottom right, how we just jumped there without even giving us that sort. So to just add that sort, we are going to be using the animated align widget, and then let's now change this to top center and then see how it's just animates there smoothly. So this is what we're going to be using. So we're going to be creating a method. We're going to be calling this align alignment get random alignment, right? And then we're going to be using the random the random class from math.dat from that math, sorry. So we're going to be getting, by the way, GitHub Copilot is making these suggestions based on what I had actually written before. So we're just going to be getting random values between -1.0 and then 1.0. So let me explain how this is. Now, if we're getting a random.next double from the random class, right? If you hover over the next double class, you see that they said that value is greater than or equal to 0.0 and less than 1.0, right? So what this means is that when we get random.next double, it's going to give us between 0.0 and 1.0. And you know that we said we want to get values between -1.0 and 1.0. So let's assume that when this thing gets the first value, let's say it gets 1, for example, 1.0, right? Now if you do 1.0 multiplied by 2, right, it gives us what? Right, it gives us 2.0, right? And then if we now do 2.0 minus 1, it then gives us 1, right? Or let's assume that the first value that we got is -1.0. -1.0 times 2 is going to give us what? Do you understand? It's going to give us minus 2.0, and then that way. So the values that we're going to be getting between this is going to be between -1.0 and 1.0. So now we're going to get the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis. Let me just say x this way. X equal to horizontal axis, right? And then y equal to vertical axis, right? So now we're trying to get the alignment for both the horizontal and then the vertical axis. So we are going to pass this get random alignment method here, so that we don't just have to manually type in an alignment into this place. So now let's say we pass the get random alignment here, right? So now you will see that as I save, let me just keep auto reloading. As I auto reload, you will see that it's aligning to different positions. So let's just change the height. So let's say 100, and then let's say 100 to make it smaller. So as I'm auto reloading now, you see that it changes the alignment. So now let's assume that you decided that, okay, this is what I want to use as a loading indicator on my splash screen, for example. How then can you make this thing run multiple times? Remember that we are not using animation controllers yet, so we can just quickly make use of the timer class from that async, right? And then we're going to call this timer, and then we're going to come to our init state, right? And we're going to initialize this timer, and then we're going to tell it to run every 1 second. So every 1 second, just call set state again, right? Every 1 second, call set state again. Every 1 second, call set state. So let's now let's restart this, and then let's see what happens to our alignment. Can you guys see now? So this is the work of animated align. Now let's imagine that we change this to just an align widget. Let's see how the behavior looks like. Just hold on. Now can you guys see? Can you see that there's like a little difference between this one and what we had before because of that animation, what's it called, factor? So do we have any questions before we proceed to the next one? By the way, I hope we are understanding how to actually use this thing, so it does not look like I'm just talking.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions? Okay, so it means if I call anybody now to say, oh yeah, come and give us chop, you will give us chop. Oh. I don't want to hear anything. Oh. Hey. So let's move on to the next one. Let's pick the animated. Should we pick the animated slide? Let me see. Okay, let's pick the animated slide widget. So we're just gonna use the animated slide widget, right? And then we're going to get the offset. So we're going to, let's do something here. We're going to remove this, right? And then we're going to have, let's say, offset, and then we're going to set this to offset.0. So by the way, offset.0 means that it means this, basically. This is what offset.0 means. It means it's starting from the origin. So 0 from x-axis and then 0 from y-axis. So normally 0, 0, 0 for offset in Flutter starts from the top left corner here, except if you then decide to translate the values into some other parts. But that's like that's a different topic on its own entirely, which we are not touching. But basically, this is what offset 0, 0 means. So we're just going to be setting this to offset.0, right? And then we're going to be passing the offsets into this place. So now, let's assume that we have okay, let's wrap this inside a column, right? I'm just gonna be having something here, and then we're gonna have a slider here, and then we're going to say the value for this will be offset.dx. Remember, the x is the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, and then the y is the y-axis, which is the vertical axis. So I'm just going to be having something in our unchanged here, and sorry, that's okay. I made it final. Sorry, my bad. So now we're going to have a slider here, right? Let me push this down a little bit. Main axis alignment or center. Good. So we're going to be having a slider here. So what this slider does basically is that it changes the value of our offset, right, as we move it. So what does this mean is that every time we move our slider, right, it sets the value of our the x of our offset. Remember that the initial value of our value from our slider is the offset.dx, which is 0. So it means that as we increase this slider, it increases the value, right? And then as we decrease it, it decreases the value too as we do that. So now what we're now saying is that once we get this new value, set the dx value of our offset to be the value that we're getting from here. So now let's just restart, and then let's try to drag this slider and see what happens. So can you guys see how we are actually sliding in between. So let me just set the duration to be 300 milliseconds so that it's faster. So let me restart, and then you can see that as we drag this thing, you can see that we are actually sliding that widget. So this is like another way you can actually use the animated slide. So let's assume that you want to maybe let's say slide the widget in, or for example, maybe let's say let's do something. Let me comment this out, and then let's set this to be offset, let's say 2, and then let's say this is 1, right? If we restart, okay, so I'm looking for how else we can change the values of our offset, but basically anyway, let's just make use of this. So this is just like an example of how you can use your animated slide by changing the offset, animated slide by changing the offset of your animated slide widget. So this could be useful in so many cases. Maybe you want to slide the widget after a user taps on one button or something. Or let's assume that okay, we have we have a circle avatar inside here. Good. Let's assume that we have a circle avatar inside here, right? And then let's assume that the radius is let's say 100, right? And then this is your user profile picture, right? And then you want to, let's say, radius, let's say,
Sorry, I can't do that in Google Chrome.
let's say that we have double radius, right, to be equal to, let's say, 100. And then you want to, let's say 50, and then you want to make sure that okay, once user taps a button, it increases the radius of your user profile picture and then brings it to the center of the screen, right? We can just pass this radius here, and then we have this offset too, right? And then we now have a, let's say, a floating action button, for example, that says floating action button that has an elevated button, and then we'll see, excuse me, we have a child that says a text that says press me, for example, right? And then we have the offset to be offset.0. Good. So now let's assume that when we press this, we want to ensure that the offset changes to, let's say this side, right? So we can just say that okay, once we tap on this, offset is going to be, let's say 100, right? And then let's say we'll now increase our radius, let's say radius equal to 100, for example. And then when we do this, we then see, oh sorry, 100 can be too much. Let's set this to be 1, 2, for example. And then, or let's say okay, 1, 1, so that we'll see how, yes, visible our what's it called is. So let's just restart, and then we're moving this from here now to this place. So when we click on press, you can see how it's animated from that part into this place. So that's how we can also use our animated slide widgets. So how you now make use of it now depends on what exactly it is that you are trying to achieve. So do we have any more questions, guys, before we move on to the next one? Do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay, so we're gonna be moving to the next one. So guys, let's choose which one should we move to from the ones that we have here. Which one from what we have here? Yeah, let's choose
Switcher.
Animated switcher.
animated switcher. Okay, so animated switcher basically helps you switch between two widgets animatedly. So let's do something. Let's have our body. Okay, let's remove this, right? And then let's have a center widget, and then we're gonna have a child which is an animated switcher child, right? And then we have a duration. That's the duration of the animation. Always remember that you always have to set your duration so that you can, you don't want to have an animation that takes forever to build. So now let's say we have child, right? And then we'll say that okay, we have a boolean variable here. Let's say bool logo visible, right? And then we're gonna say that okay, if logo is visible, right, if logo is visible, give us Flutter logo, right? Else give us container, let's say height of 100, width of 100, and then color of, let's say, colors dot gray, right? Or let's say colors of blue gray, right? And then we're gonna save this. So now, how do we make use of this thing? So now let's assume that inside our set state now, right, we're doing logo is visible. We are just negating the value basically. So let's restart, right? And then let's see when we press this now, you can see that the animation is still not smooth, right? It's just using some sort of very low opacity, what's it called, transition. So now what if we want to set our own custom transition? Now there's something called transition builder here, which takes as a child and then an animation. So how then would we set this? We can then return any of these what's it called, built-in animations, like maybe scale transition or fade transition or what's it called, or slide transition or something. So let's return a scale transition here, right? And then we're gonna set the scale to be this animation, and then we're gonna set the child to be the child. So this child now means that when our logo is visible, it is going to put Flutter logo as a child. When it is not visible, it's going to put that container. So then let us save this. Now when we press this now, can we see the scaling animation that happened? Let me increase the time. Let me set it to 2 seconds, and then let's see how it interpolates between it. Can you guys see now? So instead of having that, boring animation without, boring switching without transition, let's go back to what we had before. See what we had before. It just give us like a different. Now, mind you, if you go into the animated switcher, you can see that there's some sort of opacity animation there. Let's go into the animated switcher, what's it called, code, and then let's see. You can see that they used fade transition by default. There's a default transition builder here, which is the fade transition. So that's why you can see that it's fading in and out when you are using that. Can you see? So, but since we have actually set our own transition builder here now, we can then tell you that, okay, I don't want you to fade again, no, it's the size that I want you to resize, and then we can use this. So now for the widgets that we had initially, that thing that looks like an expansion tab, we're going to be using animated switcher, we're going to be using animated rotation and all of that. So now let's move on to animated rotation, right? I hope you understood what we just did just now. I hope you understand. Sorry. I hope you understand what we just did. If you don't understand, please let me know. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, guys. So, man, we have used 38 minutes. Amazing. So let's just quickly do rotation transition. However, you guys can then take a look at the other what's it called here, and then just try to implement it on your. These things are like very simple, basic animations that you can always implement on your own. Mind you, these are not the only implicit animations that we have. We still have things like animated opacity and all of those things. So you guys can just go to the Flutter cookbook. If you search for Flutter cookbook, you would see here docs.flutter.dev, and then you see the cookbook. So you see how to do different animations here. Like this part literally has how you can, even if you want to, do animations with navigation, you can learn how to do that in a Flutter cookbook. So yeah, let's move on now to our to our rotation transition. So let's say we have rotation. Okay, let's have a center widget, right? And then the child is going to be rotation transition, right? And then this takes in a turn. So let's say we have Flutter logo as a child, for example, right? And then we need it to always rotate. So now remove this. Turns takes in an animation of type double, right? Or let's say, okay, don't let us use rotation transition because this one needs an animation of type double and we're using implicit. So let's change this to animated rotation, right? So, and then you can see that this one takes in a turn, which is just a double. So let's say turns now double turns equals to, let's say 0, for example. Let's say 0.0, and then we're just going to pass in turns here, right? And then we'll remove this const that we have here. So now, then we'll also pass the duration, const duration, duration, we'll pass the milliseconds to be 300, and then you can see that we have the Flutter logo. So now let's now increase our turns by, now taking a look at the rotation transition, right? Take a look at it as a circle. You know, we're rotating like in a circle. So 0.25, okay, let's say 0.5, right, is half of 0.5 is half of the circle of half a rotation, right? Then 1.0 is a full rotation. So what it means is that 0.25, right, is going to be the quarter of a rotation. That means half of 0.5, right? So what we'll now do is that we'll be increasing the value of our turns by 0.25. So we're gonna say turns plus equal to 0.25, for example. So we're going to remove this final. How am I adding final here? And then we're going to restart. So now when we press this, can we see how it's rotating by itself? So you can rotate as many times as you want, right? So this is also a way you can use the rotation transition. So I hope you understand this. So now to now create what we had initially, that I said it was going to be the last thing that we're going to create, we already used 40 minutes here. So we're going to be using a mixture of rotation transition, animated switcher, and then size transition. So remember that things like scale transition, size transition, rotation transition, and all of that, they need animations of type double. And then to get animation of type double, you either have to use an explicit animation, right, which you'll be able to use your animated animation controller, or use something like an animated switcher that gives you that animation of type double inside the transition builder. So let me just remove this, right? Remember, I said that whenever we want to create our animations, the first thing we'll do is to think about what we want to create at first, right? I'm not sure that we have a screenshot of what we had initially, but we're just going to let's just have a container first. Okay, no, let us have a column, right? Column, and then we'll have children. The first thing we'll do is have a container, right? And then it's going to take in a width of double dot infinity. That means it's going to take the width of the whole screen, and then we're going to set the height to be, let's say, 40, right? And then we're going to set we're not going to give it a color. We're just going to come to the decoration, box decoration, right? And then we're going to have a border around it. So let's say border dot hall, right? And then let's see, okay, we'll have that already. So we're going to, let's wrap this in a padding so that it gives some padding around our widget. Let's say 40, right? We'll have this, good. So now remember, inside it we had a text and then an icon that is rotating. So firstly, let's say the child of our container will be a row, right? And then we'll have a children of text. Let's say tap to drop down, and then we'll have another let's say icon, right? We have icons dot arrow down iOS. I think there's an iOS, no, keyboard arrow. Yes, let's use this keyboard arrow down, right? And then we'll have this. So now we're going to then say main axis alignment dot space between, so that it sets it to what's it called, and then we're going to have a margin, a padding, sorry, and then we're going to give it a padding of, let's say 10, or let's say 15, right? Let's remove this height. Okay, let's give it 10 so that we have, good. So now remember that there was something sliding down from the bottom, and then I explained that anytime we want to make animations, let's first think about our animation. So if we want something to slide out from this place, it's not possible for us to just remove a widget from inside it and then slide it out. So what can we do? So let us just create another container here, right? Let's create another container. Let's give it a child. Remember that it had the Flutter logo as a child, right? So let's give it a child of the Flutter logo, and then let's give it a size of 200, right? Which is what we have shown here. and then let's give it padding also. Let me just copy this padding, and then I'm going to give it a padding of 40 so that it gives a lot of space. Now we have this already, and then let's just give the same decoration that we have here to this one, right? And then let's say that okay, the width also will be double dot infinity so that it meets the exact width of the what's it called at the top. Okay, we have 15 minutes more. We're gonna finish within 15 minutes. Don't worry, guys. So let's just remove the border at the top so that this thing does not look rough. So let's say border, right? And then let's say bottom border side. Let's say right border side. Then let's say left border side, right? So now this looks a lot okay. So now how do we then slide this thing back up? Because obviously it's just a widget here. So remember that we use the animated switcher, right, which allows us switch between a widget and another one. So what if we want that, okay, if this thing, if we want it to, if we tap to drop down, right, if it's visible, it should show this widget. If not, it should just give us a size box since we don't want to see anything. So let's create a boolean variable. Let's call it bool is visible, right, equals to false, right? And then we'll say that okay, let's just say that okay, if it's visible, for example, show this thing, else don't show anything, right? And then when we tap this, let's then wrap this row or this whole container itself, wrap with widgets. Let's wrap it in an inkwell, and then the on tap, let's say we're setting is visible to be this, right? So let's say that we do this, and then why did you turn it to final? We beg you. So and then when we do this, we can see that it is showing up, but we need it to slide down, right? And then we also need this icon to rotate. So now let's come here, and then let's first of all make use of the animated switcher widget. So we're gonna say that okay, our animated switcher, yeah, come here. So when we have animated switcher here, right, we're going to set the duration to be milliseconds 300, and then we're going to then say that okay, the child, when it is visible, right, give us this our container. Else, if it's not visible, just give us a size box dot shrink, right? And then we have this now. So now if we tap this now, we'll see that opacity animation looks like it's working now, right? It's switching in between that for us. So now let's now add our own transition into it. Here we're now going to return a scale, or now we're going to return a size transition. Remember I said that we're going to make use of the size transition. So size transition, basically, if you read here, you see that it says that it creates a size transition. Basically, it's just that let's assume that we want to change the size of this container from 200 to 100, right? It helps us animate between those two sizes. That's what it does basically. So now let's now say that okay, size transition, no, the size factor is required, and then we're going to pass this animation as a size factor, right? So and then we're going to save. So now when we tap this, can you guys see what happened? Can you guys see what's happening now? Can you guys see that it looks like okay, like I say this thing don't the slide though. That's like how sweet it can be, right? So now okay, so that is it for this one. Let me just set this to be a size box. Okay. Okay, so now we have successfully done our drop down. It now remains rotating this thing such that when we okay, let's change this to arrow, let's say forward, keyboard arrow down. Should we use arrow down or hey, arrow right? Good. So this is where it is. So when we drop down, right, we want it to come down to this plate. It means that we want it to rotate let's say 0.25 turns down, right? So we're going to wrap this inside, wrap with widgets. Let's say animated rotation, right? And then it takes in a turn, and then the turn So we're now going to say that, okay, oh, let's say 0 is the turns by default, right? So let's save this. Then the duration also, we're going to give it the same duration. And then let's say that, okay, this is it. So now you can see that it is 0, right? It's not rotating. So now what we want to do now is that to make sure that, okay, if this thing is becoming visible, just help us to rotate it down like this. So let's now check that down rotation. Let's set this to 0.25 first. Let's see where it goes. So you can see that it comes down. So what we are now going to do is that, okay, if it's visible, right, set 0.25 as the rotation, else set 0. And then when we, yes, 1 minute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you said. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Matthew, can you please create a new link for us quickly because of questions? Please, because of
Okay.
questions.
On the 0.25, how do you know which angle is 0.25?
Okay, yes. Let him create the new link. So we're going to share it in the channel so that everybody can join because of questions, please. This is going to end.
Okay.
Okay, wait. It ends in. Oh, we still have 9 minutes. Sorry. So now I explained that for an animated rotation, right? Let's assume that we are rotating. Sorry, around a circle, right? And then a circle is 1, right? So what it means is that half of a circle, right, which is a semicircle, which is half like, how can I draw a circle quickly? Oh, what can I use? Oh, damn. There's nothing that I can use. But let's just assume that we'll have a circle here, right? Let me quickly bring a container here, right? Height of 100, width of 100, right? And then decoration, box decoration, color, and then we are going to set the box shape to be circle. Shape, box shape dot circle, right? And then now just take a look at the rotation transition as we trying to rotate around this circle. Now the whole of the rotation of this circle is 1, right? So it means that half of this circle, right, is going to be 0.5, right? Half now will be 0.5. So what it means is that if we are getting half, it means if we are here, let's assume that this is the origin, this is where our rotation is, right? This is where we are starting. It means that if we are going to rotate to half of a circle, we are going to rotate 0.5. Do you understand? It means we are going to rotate 0.5.
Yeah.
And now remember that our icon was facing here. So it means our icon is already here, right? Which means our icon is already at 0.25, like this. For example, if I used, let's say, arrow up now, for example, let me change it to arrow up. Now you can see that our arrow is pointing at angle 0, right? So it means if we want to rotate it to come to this side, we'll use 0.25 so that it will face front. But if we want it to face down, what are we going to do? We are going to use 0.5. So as I have set it to arrow up now, if I use the same 0.25, you see that it's going to face right. Can you see? So if I now want it to face down, which is half of my circle, I'm now going to change this to 0.5. Right? And then you can see that it's facing down. So when I tap it back, it faces up because it is 0, right? And then if I want it to come down, which is half of the circle, which is 0.5, when I tap on it, it then turns back to 0.5. So do we understand?
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, good. So, and then if you now want it to rotate 360, you can then say, okay, oh, it is 1 that I want to, right? It is 1 that I want. So when you tap on it, you can see that it rotates back and then this way. So let me just delay it for, let's say, 2 seconds so that you see. And then you can see how it's rotating all the way back. And then when you tap on it, you can see how it's rotating all the way back because we used 1. So that is just basically how to, use the some of these implicit animations in Flutter. Do we have any questions, guys, before we close off? We've used an hour already. So do we have any questions? Any questions? By the way, you can also merge multiple animations in here. So for example, let's say that we want to have rotation transition, for example, right? Which needs an animation of type double. You can just say the turns will be this animation. And then when you tap this, you can see how it rotates. So you can have as many animations as you want. Let me set this to size, transition, and then I'm just going to set the size factor to be this one, and turns. So you can have as many nested animations as you want. You can see how it's rotating out and in for us when we are doing this. So that is an example of how you can use this. So do you have any questions, guys, before our call ends in 6 minutes? Any questions? Any questions? Yes, please, go ahead, boss.
So I wanted to ask you, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, so I was looking at the rotational transition, right? But I had a question, right? If you wanted to use curves,
Okay.
you'll be able to use curves without using an animated builder, right? Like a controller.
Yeah, so no, you would not be able to. So for you to be able to use curves, actually, you need something that is connected to a controller, right? You need, so for example, you can have, for this one now that has animated switcher, that has a transition builder, that we can use curve here because it has animation of type double. So we can do something like, let's say, curved animation, right? Let's say, I'm trying to see, okay, let's say for something that has a, this is animation, so let's say twin of type double now, right? Of type double, and then we can animate dot chain, right? And then we can have a curved twin here, for example. Yes, curved twin, and then we can have curves dot easing, right? So this is how you can use curves here for this one that does not have a direct animation controller, right? But because it has the animation of type double that you need, you can use something like this. So, but to be able to like maneuver all of these things, it's just better to use your own animation controller, which is explicit. But in cases where you want to do something like this drop down, you don't necessarily have to stress yourself. You can just, and then there are different curves that you can use, bouncing out, and all of that. So you can just, use any of these already available, what's it called, to use, basically. So,
all right, thank you.
Yes, boss. So for our next class, actually, we are now going to be delving into animations proper, where we'll be able to use the animation controllers. We're also going to be touching transform, using the transform widget, transform.translate, transform.rotate, transform.scale, and all of that. But all of those ones are way more interesting than this one. So our call is ending in 3 minutes. Do we have any more questions? Any more questions?
When will the next class?
Yeah, so the next class is most likely going to be next Saturday, but we'll definitely communicate it to us before Tuesday, so that we would be able to prepare ahead of time. Yeah. So yeah, do we have any more questions? Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. Thank you very much, guys, for joining this class. I appreciate you guys for learning with me, and I hope to also learn from you guys. In our next class, by the way, I want you guys to, so I would like us to do something. Now that we've spoken about implicit and explicit animations, I would like us to like go ahead to implement any explicit or implicit animation, and then let's bring it to our next class. Let's just brainstorm and then see what we can do with animations. Truth is, there's like no limit to what you can do with animations, right? So thank you very much, guys. I'm going to see you guys in the next class. Peace. Yeah.
Recorded meeting or?
Yeah, of course. We would upload this definitely. Alright, guys.
Man, mount.
Man, mount.
That's dope content.